It's 2:08 a.m. Maya should be asleep. She has a big meeting in the morning. Instead, she's lying in bed, phone in hand, heart quietly racing. She's just posted a photo, filtered, carefully worded and captioned, with the right balance of humility and hustle. A career milestone. She's proud, or at least she thinks she should be. But as the likes roll in, something feels off. She checks again. Refresh. Reply. Scroll. Refresh again. This isn't the first time. She's done this after promotions, speeches, even vacations. Moments that should have felt whole, but only felt real once other people approved. By every external measure, Maya is doing great. Top of her class, a rising star at her firm, confident on the outside, liked by colleagues, admired online. She's what people call put together. But if you could hear her inner voice, it would sound like someone constantly asking, "Am I enough yet?" The praise helps, but only for a while, because soon it fades, and she needs more. So she works harder, performs better, posts louder. She tells herself it's ambition, but deep down she knows she's not chasing a goal, she's chasing approval. And the irony? The more she gets, the more hollow she feels. Maya doesn't need more followers. She needs to ask a different question. What happens when you build your whole life around being seen in a certain way and forget who you actually are? That question isn't just hers, it's ours. And over 100 years ago, a psychologist named Alfred Adler gave us a startling answer. Welcome to Mantis Library, where we aim to understand and reclaim our power. Before Maya was a high performer, before she was an inspiration on LinkedIn, she was just a kid trying to feel like she mattered. It starts early for all of us. You're small, the world is big, and very quickly you begin to notice where you fall short. Someone's faster, smarter, more liked, more loved. That gap between where we are and where we think we should be. That's what Alfred Adler called inferiority. And here's what made Adler different from Freud or Jung. He didn't see inferiority as a trauma or tragedy. He saw it as universal and necessary. To be human means to feel oneself inferior. Adler. That feeling isn't the problem. It's what drives us to grow. We all try to compensate for our perceived weaknesses. A shy child might become a great communicator. A clumsy kid becomes a disciplined athlete. A kid who's felt invisible learns to stand out with brilliance, humor, or charm. Done well, compensation is beautiful. It pushes us to improve, contribute, and evolve. But not all compensation is healthy. Some of us overcorrect. We become obsessed with proving our worth, chasing applause, admiration, success. We stop growing towards something. We start running from something. That old feeling of not being enough. This is where Adler introduced two key ideas. The inferiority complex. When you're so overwhelmed by inadequacy, you become paralyzed, always doubting, always seeking someone to lift you. And the superiority complex. When you feel so small inside, you puff yourself up. You must be the best, the smartest, the most admired, just to feel okay. On the outside, both look different, but at the root, They're the same wound. And in Maya's case, the constant striving, the perfectionism, the curated success, that's not strength, that's compensation. It's a mask worn to cover a fear. If I stop performing, maybe I'll stop being worthy. But Adler believed there's another way, a way to grow, not from fear, but from freedom. Maya's not chasing goals anymore. She's chasing a feeling. That moment of relief when someone says, "You're amazing." That little hit of satisfaction when a post gets more likes than expected. That brief silence in her mind when no one is criticizing. It feels like control, but it's not. It's dependence. Psychologically, the need for external validation is a trap because it rewrites your brain to seek praise, not purpose. Studies have shown that social approval lights up the same reward circuits in the brain as food, sex, and addictive substances. Every like, every compliment, every "you're doing great," it delivers a hit of dopamine, the brain's chemical of motivation and craving. But like all dopamine loops, the satisfaction doesn't last. It fades, and soon you need another fix. This is how fragile identities form. You stop asking, "What matters to me?" and start asking, "What do they want from me?" You become a performer, a collection of applause-worthy moments. And the scary part, people love the version of you that's most unlike your real self. So you keep showing up as that version, even when it drains you. Adler would say this is what happens when compensation goes off course. You're not striving to grow anymore. You're striving to be a certain way, and that comes at a cost. Research links chronic validation seeking to anxiety, burnout, and low esteem because you're always on stage, always wondering if you're still enough. The more you depend on others to tell you who you are, the more powerless you become. Your mood rises and falls with opinions. Your confidence hangs on compliments. Your peace depends on never disappointing anyone. And that's not confidence, that's captivity. But Adler believed there's a way out. And it starts when you stop asking, "Do they approve of me?" and start asking, "Do I approve of the life I'm living?" Maya's search for approval isn't random. It's part of a deeper question. Why do we do anything at all? Over a century ago, 3 men wrestled with that question and gave the world 3 very different answers. Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, believed that behavior is driven by unconscious instincts, desires buried in childhood, especially the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. If Maya were on Freud's couch, he might trace her validation seeking back to her parents. Did she feel loved only when she succeeded? Did she learn to equate approval with safety? Freud would say, Maya craves validation because it mimics love, because being praised feels like being protected. Then came Jung. He agreed with Freud about the unconscious, but saw it as something richer, more spiritual. Jung believed each of us carries ancient symbols and inner characters, archetypes, and our life's task is individuation, to become whole by integrating all of who we are, light and shadow. To Jung, Maya's validation spiral is a sign she's trapped in her persona, the mask she wears to be socially accepted. Behind it lies her shadow, the parts she suppressed to fit in. Jung would say, until she confronts the parts she hides, she never feels truly free. She'll be ruled by the image she projects. Then came Alfred Adler. He broke from both Freud and Jung, and offered a radical idea. We are not determined by our past, but by the goals we set for our future. Adler saw humans not as driven by instincts or archetypes, but by chosen goals. Goals formed from our own sense of inferiority. A child who feels weak might aim to become more powerful. One who feels unseen might strive to be admired. In Maya's case, Adler would ask, "What goals are you living for?" And if her answer is to be liked, to be perfect, to be admired, then Adler would gently say, "That's not fate, that's a choice, and you can choose a new goal right now." That's Adler's deepest insight. You're not stuck, you're striving, and striving can change. If Alfred Adler could see us today, he might not be surprised, but he'd be deeply concerned, because the drive for approval isn't just personal anymore, it's cultural. Social media has turned validation into public currency. Likes, views, follows. It's not just feedback, it's your value, quantified and ranked. Post a photo, you get 342 likes. You feel seen, validated. But post something vulnerable, and the silence feels like rejection. We've built a world where your worth feels like it lives on a screen. Psychologists now call this the approval feedback loop. Dopamine hits triggered by social engagement, creating dependence on external affirmation. Over time, your sense of self becomes reaction-based. Who am I? Let's see how many people approved of me today. But it doesn't stop online. Hustle culture praises overwork as virtue, always grinding, no days off. It's productivity as identity. We don't just work, we perform work to impress followers, mentors, even strangers. Underneath it all, fear. Fear that if we stop impressing, we'll stop mattering. Then there's perfectionism, praised as discipline, but often a mask for deep anxiety. Perfectionists crave control, not because they're confident, but because they're terrified of judgment. As one therapist put it, perfectionism is self-worth tied to performance, and it's exhausting. And this doesn't start in adulthood. Family and cultural expectations teach us early. Be a good student. Make us proud. Don't embarrass us. Success means status. We learn that love often comes with conditions. So we strive, we polish, we people please. And the message is everywhere. You are only enough if you win, if you achieve, if you impress, if you never fail. This isn't ambition. It's anxiety wearing a suit. But Adler believed something powerful, that we don't have to keep chasing acceptance. We can step off the performance stage and choose a different way to live. Maya always thought she was reacting to life, to pressure, to deadlines, to expectations. But Adler would tell her something radical. You're not reacting, you're striving. Every action you take is guided by a goal, even if you don't realize it. For Adler, this was the core of human behavior. We are goal-directed, not driven by our past, but pulled by the future we imagine. And that imagined future? It's often built around mistaken goals, subconscious beliefs like, I must be liked to matter. I must perform to be worthy. If I disappoint someone, I'll be abandoned. These invisible goals shape our choices. They determine how we act, how we speak, what we avoid. So the first step to change isn't doing more. It's asking, what goal has been running my life? For Maya, it becomes clear. Her goal has never been freedom or truth. It's been performance. Chasing approval to outrun a fear of not being enough. Adler's brilliance was in showing people you can change your goal, and when you do, everything else follows. He offered tools to help. Task separation. Ask, whose responsibility is this? If someone disapproves of Maya's boundaries, that's their task, not hers. Creative power. You are not a passive product of your past. You are the artist of your character. You get to decide what story you live by. Acting as if. Even if Maya doesn't feel free yet, she has to act as if she is. She can say no. She can show up imperfect. She can choose rest over performance, not because it earns praise, but because it honors her values. So she shifts her inner compass from how do I look to am I living in alignment with what matters to me? With that single change, Maya goes from performing for power to reclaiming it. Maya didn't need to change everything at once. She just needed to change direction. Instead of chasing perfection, she started practicing presence. It began small. She said no to a late-night request from her boss, politely but firmly. She skipped a networking event and went for a walk. She shared something honest on social media, and she didn't check how it performed. Each act felt risky. She braced for disapproval, but nothing shattered. Instead, something softened inside. Because for the first time in years, Maya wasn't performing. She was just being. Bit by bit, she learned to validate herself. I said what I really think, and that matters. I rested because I needed to, not because I earned it. I shared my truth, even if it wasn't polished. This wasn't about becoming invincible. It was about becoming rooted. Maya still felt fear sometimes, still wanted to be liked, but she didn't let those wants run her life. She built inner strength, not from being admired, but from acting in line with her values, even when no one noticed. She became less reactive, less desperate for praise, less shaken by silence, because her worth wasn't floating in others' hands anymore. It was planted in her own. And this is the kind of power Adler believed in. Not the power to control others, but the courage to stop needing their approval. That's real freedom. One evening, Maya sat by her window. No awards, no praise, just quiet. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had something to prove. No performance, no panic, just presence. It wasn't a big moment, but it felt like a kind of homecoming. She thought about all the energy she had spent shaping herself to be admired. The perfect student, the model employee, the polished achiever. And she realized, the more I tried to be what others wanted, the further I drifted from who I really am. That night, she wrote one sentence in her journal. I'd rather be real than impressive. Adler once said, do not live to satisfy the expectations of others, because when you live for approval, you're always acting. But when you live from purpose, you finally begin living. So here's the question, not for Maya, but for you. Whose approval are you still chasing? And what part of yourself have you left behind to get it? You don't need to be admired to be worthy. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be you, without the performance. That's where your strength begins. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, stay curious, stay mindful, and never stop exploring. We'll see you again in Mantis Library.